Clara had spent the better part of her morning scrubbing the small ivory cottage she'd bought to start over. The faint scent of lemon cleaner clung to her fingers as she wiped the last streak of dust from the windowpane. It wasn't much, but it was hers, a sanctuary built from the ashes of a marriage that had almost destroyed her. The quiet hum of Victoria Island surrounded her, and for once, silence didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like peace. When she stepped outside to sweep the yard, her gaze drifted to the small pile of dried leaves she'd gathered earlier. Burning them seemed symbolic, a ritual of letting go. She struck a match and watched the tiny flame flicker to life. It danced beautifully for a moment, then grew wild, faster than she could control. Panic hit her chest as the wind fanned the blaze toward the low fence. Clara rushed inside, grabbed a bucket, and returned only to find the fire had spread further. Her hands shook as she tried to throw water over the flames, but it was useless. Then, like a scene from nowhere, a tall figure burst through the hedge carrying 2 fire extinguishers. The man moved swiftly, precise bursts of foam quenching the flames in seconds. When the smoke cleared, he turned to her, eyes sharp with frustration. "What on earth were you thinking?" he snapped. "You nearly set the whole neighborhood ablaze." Clara, stunned and embarrassed, muttered, "I was just burning leaves. I didn't think." "That's obvious," he cut in dryly, brushing soot from his shirt. "Next time, try a bin instead of a bonfire." His tone stung more than she expected. "Thank you for saving the day," she replied coolly. "Mister?" "Nathan," he said shortly. "Your new neighbor. Try not to burn your house, and mine, next time." Without another word, he disappeared through the hedge. Clara stood frozen, a mix of humiliation and curiosity swirling inside her. He was rude, yes, but also strangely captivating. That night, Nathan sat in his dimly lit room, the faint scent of smoke still on his shirt. He couldn't shake the image of the woman with the fire and defiant eyes. He'd met plenty of people in his life, most trying too hard to impress him, but not her. She hadn't apologized much or flirted. She'd just stood there, proud even in embarrassment. Something about her lingered. On the other side of the hedge, Clara tried to focus on her book, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the stranger with the fire extinguishers. He'd annoyed her, yet her pulse had raced in a way it hadn't in years. Maybe it was because he hadn't treated her like she was fragile. Maybe because he hadn't cared who she was. Neither of them knew that this chance encounter, the fire that burned too bright, had just sparked something that would change both of their lives forever. Days passed, and life returned to quiet routine. Nathan worked from home, surrounded by sketches and blueprints, his world built on logic and design. But Clara's face kept intruding, her steady eyes, her trembling hands by the flames. It bothered him more than he'd admit. One cool afternoon, he saw smoke rising again, from her chimney this time. "Unbelievable," he muttered, grabbing his keys and heading over. When he arrived, Clara was calmly tending to her flowers, unaware her chimney was belching smoke thick enough to choke the sky. "Are you serious?" he shouted. "Your house is on fire, again." Clara blinked, startled. "It's just the fireplace. It's been chilly." He didn't wait for explanations. Within minutes, he'd grabbed her extinguisher and forced the fire under control just as emergency trucks arrived. The aftermath was messy, soot-streaked walls, damp floors, and the faint stench of smoke clinging to the air. "This place isn't safe for tonight," Nathan said firmly. "Pack a bag. You're staying with me." Clara frowned. "That's unnecessary. I can." "I'm not asking." There was a calm authority in his tone she couldn't fight. Minutes later, she was sitting in his sleek black SUV, her heart thudding wildly. When they reached his modern, sunlit mansion, she was overwhelmed. "Make yourself at home," he said, tossing his jacket on the couch. "You've had enough fire for one day." The guest room was beautiful, warm, softly lit, smelling faintly of lavender. When she finally emerged for dinner, Nathan looked up and smiled faintly. "You clean up well," he teased. For the first time in years, Clara laughed, a sound light and free. Over plates of spicy rice and laughter, the tension eased. He was unexpectedly gentle, curious about her past, careful with his questions. And when she told him about the marriage that had left her hollow, he listened, not with pity, but with quiet fury at the man who had hurt her. That night, as she lay awake in his guest room, staring at the ceiling, Clara realized something unsettling. She felt safe, and that scared her more than the fire ever had. Nathan barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her sitting quietly across the table, the firelight glinting off her hair, the weariness in her smile. He couldn't explain why he cared. He'd spent years avoiding attachment, finding comfort in shallow flings and work that never looked back at him. Yet here he was, thinking about a woman who had nearly burned her house down twice. When morning came, Clara awoke to the soft scent of coffee and the distant clinking of dishes. Nathan stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, cooking breakfast. "You didn't have to," she began. "I wanted to," he interrupted. "Sit. Eat." It wasn't just breakfast. It was an offering of peace. Over scrambled eggs and tea, they talked, hesitant at first, then with ease. Nathan told her he was an architect, always buried in projects that paid well but meant little. Clara shared how she had once loved art, how she'd given it up for a man who convinced her that dreams were distractions. Something inside Nathan stirred. "You should start again," he said. She shook her head. "Some things can't be revived." He looked at her, voice quiet but firm. "You're still breathing, aren't you? That means you can start again." That afternoon, while Clara rested, Nathan called in a cleaning crew and renovation team. He didn't tell her. By evening, her cottage had been scrubbed, repaired, and renewed. He replaced the scorched walls, repainted the rooms, and filled the space with small touches, fresh sheets, flowers on the counter, new curtains. When he finally drove her home, Clara was stunned into silence. The house looked reborn, bright, alive, no trace of smoke or sorrow. "Nathan, what did you do?" she whispered. He only smiled. "You deserve a fresh start." Her eyes filled. "You had no right to do this without asking." He frowned, taken aback. "I was trying to help." "Help?" she snapped, tears brimming. "I've spent years being helped by men who wanted to own me. I don't need saving." Nathan took a slow breath, stepping closer. "Who made you believe that kindness comes with a price?" Clara froze. No one had ever said it like that before. His voice softened. "I don't want anything from you. I just wanted you to smile again." Her defenses cracked. She stepped forward and hugged him, her tears soaking his shirt. It wasn't romantic, not yet. It was survival meeting compassion. "You matter, Clara," he whispered against her hair. "And I'll keep saying it until you believe me." For the first time in years, she didn't pull away. Weeks passed in a strange kind of calm. Clara found herself smiling more often, painting again, filling canvases with color and hope. Nathan became a constant presence, sometimes infuriating, often comforting, always there. One evening, he found a sketchbook tucked under a throw blanket in the guest room. Inside were drawings, portraits alive with emotion, pain, and beauty. "These are incredible," he said when she caught him flipping through them. "You weren't supposed to see those," she murmured. "They deserve to be seen," he replied. "You deserve to be seen." 3 days later, Nathan drove her into the city under the pretense of a surprise. When they arrived at an art gallery, Clara's breath hitched. Her drawings were framed on the walls, spotlit and admired by strangers. People whispered, smiled, pointed. "What did you do?" she gasped. "I called in a favor," Nathan said simply. "They loved your work." Her eyes filled as she watched a woman wipe tears before one of her pieces. "They feel you," Nathan said quietly. "Now you can feel seen too." By the end of the night, every painting had been sold. When she turned to him, she couldn't find words, only gratitude so deep it ached. "I think I'm falling for you," she whispered. Nathan smiled faintly. "Good, because I already fell." But peace never lasted long. Days later, a letter arrived at Clara's cottage. No return address, just her name scrawled in messy handwriting. Inside were old photographs of her and Adrian, and a note, "You may have run, but I'm not done with you yet." Her world tilted. When Nathan found her trembling on the porch, he took the letter and read it silently, his jaw tightening. "I'll handle it." "No," Clara said quickly. "I don't want more chaos. He's already taken enough of me." Nathan knelt before her. "You're not alone anymore." That night, he called friends in security and hired private investigators. Within days, they learned Adrian had been released on bail and was trying to intimidate her again. But Clara didn't break this time. With Nathan by her side, she filed a restraining order and faced the darkness head-on. The threats stopped. And for the first time, fear didn't own her. Months passed. The air in Clara's cottage was lighter now, filled with laughter and the scent of paint. She had opened an art studio in the spare room, a place for women to rediscover themselves through color and creation. She called it Canvas of Hope. Every weekend, children and women came by to paint, to heal, to begin again. Nathan helped with the renovations, often teasing her about paint stains on his suits. Worth it, he'd always say with a grin. One quiet evening, Clara stood before a half-finished painting, two people walking hand in hand through a blooming field. Nathan entered softly behind her. "You always paint what you feel," he said. She turned, smiling. "And what do you see?" "I see us," he replied simply. Clara laughed, a sound that filled the room with light. "I never thought I'd have this," she whispered. "Peace. Love. Safety." Nathan stepped closer, tilting her chin up. "That's because you built it yourself. I just stood beside you." Tears shimmered in her eyes as she whispered, "I love you, Nathan." He smiled, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Then marry me. Let me spend forever reminding you you're enough." Her breath caught. For a heartbeat, the world was still. Then she nodded, laughing through her tears. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. Their wedding was simple, a garden filled with flowers and light, laughter floating through the air. Clara wore a gown painted at the hem with her own designs, symbols of rebirth. When Nathan kissed her under the soft glow of lanterns, it wasn't a fairy-tale ending. It was real. After the ceremony, they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset bleed into the horizon. Clara rested her head on his shoulder. "You gave me back my fire," she whispered. He chuckled. "Funny, you were the fire all along. I just made sure you didn't burn alone." She smiled, closing her eyes as the evening breeze brushed past them. The woman who once feared flames now painted them with love. The man who once feared feelings now found peace in them. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And in the quiet glow of twilight, they finally understood that some fires don't destroy. Some fires heal.